of going live. It just
happened.
Here we are. We're chatting, and here we are.
Getting prepared for everyone.
So are we gonna do this with our meditation? Yes, with sharing and.
Okay, so welcome to another episode of the Caribbean Edge. We're so honored this evening to have two beautiful, lovely, talented, and strong women join us at the table. And before we dive in, I just want to say congratulations, Jamaica, for their independence, 57 years on Monday, August 5th. So lots of celebrations going on in the Caribbean community, not just with the Jamaicans as well. So we're going to start with introductions. My name is Dawn Wilson. Welcome.
Sky Jarrett, thanks for having us. Yes, thank you so much for having us, Rain Jarrett. Hi, everybody.
Cheryl Marshall. Hi, everyone. Happy Hump Day.
Happy Hump Day.
So we want to start with meditation, courtesy of the Jarrett sisters. So thank you as you lead us in.
So preface that this is a selfish ask for us to settle in and really be present and focused in this moment. So for the viewers at home, we invite you to join us as well as we transition from our day at work or however you spent your time today and transition into this moment. So we invite you to settle in to this moment with us, and we'll start our meditation with a few deep breaths. With each exhale, really focusing on cultivating a sense of relaxation. With each inhale, really bringing in a sense of peace, a sense of calm. And on each exhale, really releasing the energy of the day. And we'll just bring our focus and attention here to our breath. Again, with each inhale, bringing in a sense of peace, a sense of calm, and on each exhale, releasing the energy of the day. Gently bringing our focus and attention back to the room and for us here at the glass table.
Thank you for that.
Welcome back.
I never meditate, so that
My
was
first time, yeah.
No.
You
did.
That was like 30 seconds. But what was it like? Tell me.
No, it was great. I felt like I could have gone more because I was worried when you first said 3 minutes. I'm like, am I going to be able to do this for 3 minutes? But I felt like I could have gone more. It felt good, yeah.
Yeah, and never refocus and leave all the work behind. It's like really different for me.
We're no
So
longer
thank you for
meditation virgins.
You are no longer meditation virgin. And we popped your cherry.
Yeah,
We're so honored. Right?
So thank you for popping the cherry.
we appreciate it.
So hopefully you enjoyed that moment as much as we did as well. So thank you, ladies. So we're going to dive in to this episode. We thank everyone for tuning in. Rain and Sky have joined us just to talk about their experiences and where they are today. They have two powerful, influential parents that they're going to get upfront and personal and ask as many questions as you want. They're open, they're honest, and they'll let us know. So my first question to you ladies is your names. They're so beautiful.
Thank you.
Tell us about your name. Where did that come from?
It's interesting because I think Sky and I have had different experiences with our names. For me, it was a sore topic. I was teased very much as a child and went through a very painful experience with a name like Rain. And a lot of people don't know that my middle name is Bo, and I went as Rainbow. I was referenced as Rainbow growing up. So that was even more tumultuous, and the teasing was even more intense. But I think growing up with a Rastafarian dad and a mom who is part Cherokee, they wanted to give us a name that stood out, that was unique. At the time, growing up in Jamaica, the tradition was to give kids African-sounding names like Shakira, Makiba. That was the in thing. And that was nice, but Mommy and Daddy said we want to do something different. So with the Cherokee sort of orientation, there's a tendency to give your kids nature names, and that was sort of the impetus for that. And then when I was born, there was a beautiful rainbow in the sky, according to my mom. So that sort of hit home for her, and that was
Triggered,
it.
yep.
And then of course, with a name like Rainbow, you can't name your child Mary, right? No, we love the name Mary, but you know, it had to sort of follow up with something that was
Equally
fitting,
special.
right? Equally special. So Sky was the one, and then it sort of started a trend with our younger siblings, and we've grown into our names. I used to tell my mom, "How could you do this to us? You weren't thinking of how mean kids are." And you know, I told her I was going to change my name by default, but I've certainly learned to accept and appreciate it, and it's.
Yeah.
At what age did you learn to accept and appreciate it? Did it take a while? Were you in your teens? Was it that late?
Adulthood, I would say.
Yes, I would think so.
It
Yeah.
was a really rough journey, and I think having the dad that we had in music and being really a reggae ambassador to the world, representing Jamaica, people knew of us before they knew us.
Right.
And that was a struggle for me. I'm very private and tend to be very introverted, and so feeling like people had this this feeling of knowing us without really knowing us was a struggle oftentimes for me. So yeah, I would say in my adult years is when I really sort of became comfortable and owned it and really, took ownership of it.
And now you love it.
And now I love it. Yeah, now I love it.
Good.
I love it.
I actually went on a campaign to change my name at like age 7. I made a business case for this is why I think my name should be changed, because I felt that strongly about it.
Wow.
But working in a very large corporation, the value for me was being the only Sky in the entire company of 400,000 people. And so I could walk into a networking event and just put Sky. 3 letters. That's who I am.
Yep.
And look in the global address, you find me. So I was able to embrace it then. But it took that many years.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of compliments on your names, and people asked if they were really your names.
Yes, we get that
that's
question
the question.
too.
Right.
Is that your real name? Yes.
That's the question.
Yeah, but
Or is that your stage name? I'm like,
Right.
really? You couldn't come with something better than
I
that?
know, right? But I'm so sorry that you were bullied about it, and that's, so many kids get bullied as well for various reasons, and it's so difficult. So hopefully, they get stronger through the process, and bullying, of course, is unacceptable.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it taught us to be tough, and for me, I came up with coping strategies in anticipation of the negative comments and the teasing. So I would have my spiel ready for when I would go out and anticipate that conversation.
Yeah.
That was the way I sort of maneuvered through. But it's something I would have to sit down and think about. So when them come back with this now, what you wear, just as a way to, get through.
You beat
it was
them
very
to it,
uncomfortable.
yeah.
She's
Yeah.
very witty though, and her comebacks are. I mean,
She's a pro now, right? Or then. So tell us about your dad, because not everyone in our audience, because I asked someone, do you know who Third World is? And he did not know. So can you give us some background on your dad, things that people may not know about him, what it was like for you young ladies with such a famous dad?
The first thing is I didn't know Daddy was famous growing up as a child. People would always marvel about his hair. He had beautiful locks, and that was always a topic of conversation wherever we went when he wasn't on tour. we would go to the shopping malls and people would, can I touch it? And he, you know, always so accommodating, would welcome it. But I really didn't know the extent of his notoriety and how well he was known, the third world band in general. So that took a little, wow, okay, getting used to. But Daddy was very special. He was very wise. He was very eccentric. He was not someone who fit in. He stood out. His uniqueness. He also experienced a lot of taunting because of his individuality and how different and special he was. Looking back now, it makes sense for us, some of just, you know, his nuances and just the way he was. We think he was very wise, for sure. He had a lot of knowledge and, you know, was a very interesting person. Like, to just sit down and talk to him, he was a conversationalist. He loved people, you know, and he taught us a tremendous amount about life and just living well with people, and that has become a mantra for us. Like, you need to just live good with people. You know, at his core, he was a humanitarian, and he loved, you know, getting along with and interacting with people. He also loved Jamaica very much. Jamaica was a very, very special place to my dad, and it was a big part of who he was. And so he took that role of ambassador very seriously. He was a very spiritual person. He was a believer in God as well. Rastafarian for sure, so that was sort of his belief system and his orientation. And it transcended different parts of his life, so it affected and sort of shaped his diet and how he treated his body. He would always say, your body's a temple, right? He took very special care in his personal hygiene and his hair. And I mean, it would take him 3 hours to get ready to go somewhere because very intricate sort of oiling of his locks, and you can't rush him. He has to take his time, and you know, it wouldn't be unusual to see him in a robe, and you know, just I kind of get that from him. I don't love anything more than a robe, and so very interesting guy, very special guy, and traveled a lot. He spent a lot of time away, but Daddy and I had a very special connection, and it's 5 of us children. We all had a very different, very special relationship with our dad.
We all thought we were the favorite.
We absolutely did.
But that's what good parents do, right?
Yes, but
each of us thought we were the favorite. Absolutely.
I don't think you understand.
Absolutely.
When Daddy passed away this month last year is when we each uncovered, but wait, she was legitimately a favorite too. And I thought I was really the favorite. And then Summer thought she was really the favorite. So we each, but that says a lot about the man that he was. That we each secretly felt we are the favorite.
Personalized.
And then we come to realize that not only do we feel that way, but there is a population of people who feel that way as well. What does that say about a man who can touch someone's life so deeply that they feel, even in one interaction, they have something special? I mean,
amazing, right?
Amazing. And we all professed or promised, made the commitment to honor his legacy by living in that way. So the mantra of live good with people, we said we have to keep his legacy alive by doing the same. And it has not only manifested in terms of our general interaction, but even the work that we do. The night before he passed, I was at a mindfulness event, and he called in the middle of the meditation, so I couldn't answer the phone. He was in Jamaica, I was in DC at the time, and it was late. It was like 10 o'clock when the event was over, and I said, I'll call Daddy tomorrow, and something said, just call him back. And I called him in the car, and he said, video time in us, FaceTime in us, so I can see on video. And I said, Daddy, I drive in. And he said, you don't have to look at me, I just want to see you. And so I FaceTimed him, and then Rain called him.
He had called me as well. And I was putting Noah to bed, and I messaged him, and I said, Papa, because that's what we call him sometimes. I said, I put Noah to bed, I call you back. And so when I was done putting Noah to bed, I called him back, and he was on the phone with Sky. So the 3 of us did a 3-way. And you can continue.
The conversation ended with us agreeing on a date that we would, all 3 of us, go on radio and talk about the work that we were doing and the importance of mindfulness. And as a holistic health practitioner, he felt like the work he had been doing around nutrition, around health, around wellness, around your physicality was missing a dimension around the mind and what it meant to have mental well-being. And so he wanted to incorporate the work that we have been doing into his
work.
His practice as well. So that, I mean, talk about just an affirmation, and then for him to pass the next day,
The morning
and for
after.
that to be the last conversation that we had with him, it just, there's no denying the value of that conversation, and that this is the track that we will continue to be on, and honor that.
Absolutely beautiful.
conversation.
Thank
It
you
really
guys
was.
so much for sharing that.
Yes.
Oh my
Beautiful
God.
story. Wow.
Of course.
Oh, my pores.
Wow.
And we hold on to those moments. So I still have the conversation after we hung up and we set the date for the radio show, which was 2 weeks after, and we were all excited. And Daddy loved chat. Like leave it to him, he would have sat on the phone with us for hours. And I said, I have to go. I love you. And he messaged me and he said, thank you for taking the time to have that conversation, and it just reminds me how dynamic of a family we are. Like, he sent me that message and I responded and I said, I love you, and that was it. That was the last message that we had. So we hold on to those moments.
Yeah. And that sends a powerful message to all of us, because I think as we get older too and we accept each other more and forgive each other more, we realize how important it is to respect and love each other. And whenever your mind tells you, make that phone call, pick up the phone and call someone, just follow your heart and just do it. So I remind myself, every time I say, I'll put it off, I'll say, no time like the present, right? Because you just don't know.
You just don't know. We take it for granted, and he never took either of us for granted or the time. For him to say to his daughter, thank you for taking the time to have that conversation with me, just shows the level of dignity that he had, and regard for people and appreciation for people. I mean, and that's so instilled in us, and we'll forever carry that on.
Yeah. And appreciation of your time.
Yes,
Because that's the best thing you can give to someone is your time.
You don't
and
get it back.
It's free.
You do not get back your time.
And as a parent, you have, children feel they have an obligation, right? So let me call daddy or mommy because I have to call. It's my mom or my dad. But even despite that parent-child level, he still took the time to say those things. And it's interesting, it's the acceptance, because again, Daddy went through a lot of ridicule growing up as a Rasta man in Jamaica. Mommy experienced some of that as well, being her spouse.
Yeah.
And, it took us a long time as his children to really accept him for the man that he was.
Yeah, because Rastafarians weren't always accepted the way they are now.
Yes, and not only that, but just how eccentric he was, and he was very self-centered, which usually gets a negative connotation, but he really took time to learn about himself and explore himself, and he knew with conviction who he was. And because of that, he was able to engage with people in a very deep way, because he was very sure of himself. But again, even as his children, that took a time. And I think I sort of understood him for who he was
Because
a little
she's
earlier.
convinced she was the favorite.
Here's where the rationale comes in, right? I got him.
Yeah.
I understood him, right? And so when things would happen that some of the other siblings probably wouldn't, I did. I got it. And he understood that as well. And very different ways of him, different siblings understood about him, right? We understood different parts of him because he was very multi-layered. But that helped with our connection. But again, that acceptance took time.
Yeah.
He was away from us a lot, but a lot of the absence was him working on himself, right? He struggled with bipolar as well, and he took a very holistic approach to it. And so the time that he was spending away from us was really time that he needed to take care of himself. But we perceive that very often as being selfish and being, but again, through that journey, we really came to a 360 moment where we understood him, we accepted him, we loved every bit of him, and I think that has helped with our grieving process.
Good.
And it's something that I think Rain has really adopted from him, the value of self-care. And I think Daddy is a great example as you talk about him taking that time to take care of himself and what that did for the quality of who he was when he showed up.
Yeah.
Because you could be at an event with 500 people, and when Daddy is standing talking to you, you feel as if you are the only person in that room, in that space with him, because he was able to be there fully
Present
with you.
and
Yeah.
fully. Yeah.
And it's because he took such great care of himself that he was then able to give to others in such a rich. I mean, when he passed, we listened into the first radio show after he passed, and strangers from all over the country, from all over the world, reaching out, pouring out their love for him, and referencing very intimate moments with him, that he touched them in a very deep way, and we're saying, wow, talk about leaving a fingerprint in the hearts and minds and soul of people. And that's just such an inspiration for us and the work that we want to carry out in this world. I mean, it's really driven by who he is and what he represented.
Awesome.
Wow.
Thank you, ladies. I mean, so heartfelt.
Yes.
And there are no words that can say how the world felt about his loss, but even more impactful for you guys. But you've obviously realized as a parent what he gave to you both and your siblings to continue for generations. So
For sure.
thank you for your strength.
Of course.
Let's talk about another deep topic, your mom, who is a strong force in the Caribbean community, Miss Gina.
She's probably watching.
Proud of her daughters, I'm sure, but you got another blow handed to you. There are no words to even describe it. I remember sitting with your mom, and she was supporting another friend, and she started telling me that she felt, like a little lopsided, dizzy at times, and I said, Gina, that sounds serious. You need to go to the doctor. And she said, yeah man, I'm gonna go. And shortly thereafter, I think probably next couple of days or day, I understand you ladies took her, and you guys can tell us what happened from there.
You were with her, so.
Yeah, it happened very quickly. She wasn't feeling very well and got in touch with her physician, who did some initial tests. And a few days later, she called me and she said, take your mother to the ER right now. And in that moment, I knew. And the first thing I did was stop and took a breath. And it has been sort of a lifeline for me, that practice of breathing. And I really feel like with all the challenges that we've experienced, everything in our life that we've experienced has made us ready for these really life-changing experiences. So I got that call, and after my breath I prayed and I said, God, just prepare us for this journey, without even knowing anything else, And I went inside and I said, Mommy, we need to go to the ER. And she just started to cry. The fear just took over her, because she knew. Mommy is very intuitive, and I think she knew her body well enough to know. And so that started it. We took her to the hospital, and they did some tests, and it confirmed the diagnosis of stage 4 breast cancer. Lung cancer, which metastasized to the brain. And through testing after, we found that the cancer was in other spots, so in her shoulder and other areas. And so we just really battened down and decided that we need to take charge. We are helping her fight for her life, and we have to take a very strategic approach to this journey. And so Sky, doing the work that she has done as a management consultant, I think really was very valuable in that process, because when your emotions have taken over in such a strong way, it's difficult to see. But we understood the value in having the ability to see clearly. And so again, we just really relied on those mechanisms and strategies, and without even realizing that we were relying on them, we were doing those things.
They became automatic.
They became automatic. They really did. And so that 6 months after Daddy passed is when we got this diagnosis, and we really started to just become more inward and focus on what needed to be done. but also really feeling the love and support from the community. That was tremendous. The outpour of love that we received from all over the world really made a difference.
Yeah.
And I think because Mommy has been so vulnerable with her sharing and with her experience, that has allowed her to receive that love and support. Cancer is something that unfortunately a lot of people are experiencing, and a lot of people tend to hide it, and that presents a different experience that has not been Mommy's. And so she's doing really well, she's feeling well, she's responding really well to the treatment, and she has taken a holistic approach to her healing, which has been such a life changer for her. So of course we're relying on the traditional doctors and their treatments and therapies, but she's taking a mind, body, soul type of approach, and she has made us proud. Really, she has been an inspiration in sort of how she's going through her journey.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to share a little bit that they're not saying. They really stayed on top of these doctors, which is important because
it was our job.
Every doctor treats you differently. So you want to make sure you have the right doctor that's being as attentive as you think they should be to your parents.
Yeah, and it was multiple doctors because the cancer was in different parts of her body. So there were specialists for each organ, and then the overarching person, and it was just so many moving pieces. And for somebody going through that experience, especially with tumors on your brain impacting your cognitive functioning, and the emotion of what you're going through, of your reality, it's difficult to keep track of all the details and the dependencies, and okay, so you said that, but doesn't that contradict what you just said, and what will that do for this thing? And so we made sure that one of us was always there with her. We had a note-taking system institutionalized by this one because we needed
it's necessary. It's very necessary.
To keep track. And if I'm having a conversation with this one after I had the conversation with this one, I have to compare notes and see. And if one of us couldn't be there, if she couldn't be there, I'm recording for her, so she's listening after. And it was just a lot of staying on top of them, and we fired a few of her doctors because we didn't feel like they were the caliber of treatment that we felt she deserved.
Right.
And that has served her really well. Instrumental in this process as well has been her the mental approach that she has taken, really the mindset that she has put herself in. She practices meditation every morning. I had been sort of exposing her to some breathing exercises, and she shared the first cyberknife treatment she went into. It was such an intimidating experience because you're in this bed, in this big room, there are loud big machines moving all around, they're coming into your brain and zzz and loud, and she said she felt so overwhelmed, like she was going to freak out, and something just clicked, and she remembered, I have my breath. And she started doing a breathing exercise, and that just calmed her down.
Nice.
And it wasn't something I said to her before she went in, it was because she had been practicing before. So we have seen the value of a lot of these practices, and they have served us well in some of the most difficult moments. And that has just given credence to us of how powerful they are.
And Gina, I saw her last weekend, I believe, and yes, definitely positive.
Oh my goodness.
I know you guys had her on a diet too, and I heard your dad was not an ounce of fat on his body. He was
and
so
he
health
never went
conscious.
to a gym one day in his life.
Yeah.
Never.
So I know you guys were monitoring her food intake and taking great care of her.
A little intense.
I'm
Well,
sure.
it's about nutrition.
Life or death.
It is about
Life or
nutrition.
death
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
But when you're used to your jerk pork and your fried fish and your oxtail and your stew peas, all the Caribbean food, and then, like you said, life changing. Now this is survival mode.
Yeah.
But to some degree, when you speak about your dad, he was always in that zone, always making sure he was being taken care of personally, in order to pass it on and be the best person to everyone else around him.
And she would make reference to him because before Daddy passed, my mom went to Jamaica to see someone who was family to us and also battling cancer. And he wanted Daddy to come up with a treatment plan for him, a holistic care plan. And so my mom went to sort of facilitate the meeting, and it was somebody who shared a lot of history, the three of them. And Mommy had a real come to Jesus moment with my dad, and she shared with us that she hugged him and she said, for everything that I've ever resented you for, we're good.
Oh.
And, you know, just showing credence to the type of people they are, that they were able to have that opportunity before he passed was amazing.
Not a coincidence.
Not a coincidence at all. But she would have her moments where she was in the thick of it and, you know, going through everything and eating her nutritious food, and she's like, all right, Jared, yes, I see you, yes, see, now I'm eating the good food, you know, so she'd have those conversations with him. And, you know, our family dynamic is very unique. We are a blended family for sure, but we don't operate like a typical blended family. And I think that has also been a life lesson for us, the siblings, just to watch our parents navigate the dynamics of blended families and to see, you know, how you really should do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a beautiful thing.
So we have some comments from our
What
viewers.
are they saying?
Well, a lot of people, including Trisha Chung Foster, saying good evening, ladies.
Hello, Trisha.
Carol Harris, beautiful ladies, so proud of Rain and Sky.
Nancy Carol.
And Sharon Jones is, you ladies are so inspirational. Okay, so we'll continue to read the comments, and I know Joan also said she could listen to you guys all day.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you.
I second that, Joe. I totally second that. I'm sitting here and I'm just lapping it all up.
Thank you.
So putting you ladies on the spot, going back to Third World, what's your favorite Third World song?
That's easy for me. You want to
Yeah,
go?
that's. I would be surprised if all his kids didn't say "Always Around,"
Oh,
because
really? Yeah.
Daddy wrote that song, and he wrote it for our brother.
Yes.
And there was one word in the song that they changed, and it made it from father to son to a romantic song. So we kind of know and appreciate the background story of it. And I mean, Daddy was sort of that type of omnipresent being, right? So that metaphor of being always around is so comforting for us after his passing.
Yeah.
It was our favorite before, and I think
No,
for that
even
reason,
more so.
even more so.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that song plays in the weirdest moments, right?
Wow.
Like, you'll just randomly hear it. I mean, you had an experience a couple weeks ago where a Third World song randomly played, and we were out in Wynwood at the art show last weekend, and a Third World song. It's just, these are subtle reminders to us of his omnipresence. So always around will definitely, I think. I would be surprised if Summer, Ard, and Judo said anything different.
Good. So if you haven't heard that song, you have to go on YouTube and
Always
listen to that
around.
song.
Yes.
That's a beautiful song. Beautiful song.
So tell us about, or share with our viewers and us, what actually you do, your company, and where you are now that we've taken you from who you are, your experiences with your parents. Who are you today?
Forget mommy and daddy. We've talked enough about mommy and daddy.
But this process that we've gone through in this conversation is exactly what our lives have been like. And me being the younger one for the longest time, I was Gina Jarrett's daughter, Carrott Jarrett's daughter, Rain's sister, Ard's sister. I'm like, hello, I'm a person, Gina. I am Sky. Hello. So who are we? I mean, I think we've shared a little bit about our childhood and our history. I think for me, I pride myself on being a very vibrant, bold, courageous, outgoing individual who just loves life and makes it a practice to live good with people, right? In honor of Daddy.
I'm an introvert. I'm not as bold as Sky.
I'm a bit of an omnivert. I get energy from people, but I will go home and be extremely exhausted at the same time. But I'm really intrigued by people and intrigued by just human behavior. And another story about Daddy, because it will weave in really nicely. We were in high school, and we were young in high school, like 9, 10. And Daddy said, you need to start thinking about what you want to do with the rest of your life. What career path do you want to pursue at like 9, 10?
Right.
And he very diligently took us to different people who are in different professions so that we can start to explore these different areas of interest. I was so intrigued in human behavior. He introduced me to an industrial organizational psychologist who was living in New York at the time. And we had a very thought-provoking, informative conversation because she made me realize the fact that, and if you think about this, as individuals, we spend most of our lives at work, right? More time at work than doing anything else.
Oh, yes.
And so if I was a person who wanted to have an impact on people's lives, what better way than to impact their life at work? And she made me understand the value of leadership and the impact that leaders have on other people's lives, and that you're a leader not only within a business context, but you have an opportunity as an individual to take a leadership role in your own life. And that just really stuck, at age 10, that just stuck with me and informed the career path that I took. I went into study industrial organizational psychology, went into HR, was bored of the bureaucracy, no offense to you HR professionals, and went into consulting where I felt it would really exercise my creativity and strategic thinking and be able to have more of an impact on people's life in a more meaningful way. So I went into consulting and worked for one of the big 4 consulting firms. It is an organization of 400,000 people globally, and it was a very tough environment. I mean, we value high performance, and that just came with a level of stress, and consulting is a very difficult career path to have. You are being paid a very expensive premium price, and your clients know it, and they make you know it, and they put the pressure on you to deliver a result that is equal to that investment that they're putting in you. And along that journey, was introduced to meditation, to the practice of mindfulness, and really found a very profound benefit for myself coping with this very hard charging, fast-paced, overachieving, and add to the mix that I was a perfectionist, right? So you throw that in the mix of this environment that is going to take everything from you and require a very high level of performance. It was really a perfect storm, and I found it very challenging to cope. And advancement and achievement was so important to me that it was just really difficult. And I found solace in the practice. I found something that could help me to sustain and really manage all of the different aspects of what I was experiencing. So felt compelled that I can't be the only one tapping into this gift. It has had such a profound impact on me. I feel like I need to go on a mountaintop and scream to the world, people, there is a different way of living. And when you look at the statistics of experiences of anxiety, experiences of stress, the World Health Organization has now declared burnout as an actual diagnosis, right? The work-life environment is becoming increasingly difficult. The pace of life in general is becoming increasingly difficult. And so I felt it necessary to bring the practice of mindfulness to that organization. Was very successful, became certified, was teaching mindfulness for the organization, but just felt like there needed to be more. I needed to scale, I needed to have more impact. And so Rain and I came together and said, well, we've been servicing very different industries. Rain is a professor, and so her interaction is in the education realm, working with teachers, working with students, working with faculty, working with parents. As a parent herself. And we felt, wow, I could target corporate leaders and executive teams. You can target moms and parents and teachers and students, and what a powerful combination that will be.
Perfect, yes.
So we have formed a company, Transcend, which strives to help individuals overcome their barriers. It's founded or grounded a lot in mindfulness practices, brain science, very research-based. I also have a background in positive psychology, so we focus on what does it mean to truly flourish, and mindfulness is one of the tools that we offer to individuals. So here we are. I've been rambling for a few minutes now.
So we just want to spell Transcend for everybody. So it's Transcend LLC, and that's how you'll find it, Rain and Sky. And then we'll also share the link as well.
Everybody's looking at me.
I was waiting to share.
What do you primarily want people to know about Transcend?
I think Sky did a really good job of talking about, at our core, what we represent with mindfulness specifically, but just in generally with Transcend. For me, it's important for people to know that everyone is experiencing their own challenges in life, right? Sky talked about the fact that we are experiencing this chronic level of stress globally. And what we have found is that some amount of emotional stress is a part of the human experience, right? So you're going to experience some amount of stress. But that human suffering doesn't have to be universal. And we are seeing this as a global trend, that human suffering is becoming universal. And for us, what we hope to spread to people with our work through Transcend is the difference between that human experience of emotional stress and human suffering is your ability to build resilience, right? The ability to cope despite the challenges and to be able to experience those hardships with some flexibility and grit to be able to bounce back. We have experienced that in our own lives, but it has prompted us to study the science and to study the different components of the work that we're doing. And so we bring different perspectives, as Sky mentioned, with her background in psychology, me as a sociologist, we're both social scientists, but we feel very strongly about our life and experiences really prompting us and making it ripe for the work that we're doing. And we're very passionate about it. I mean, surely people have to make money to survive, but it goes beyond that. We feel convicted in spreading what we've been learning, and we're enjoying it. One of my mantras, and I share with my sister all the time, I'm big on mantras, I'm big on manifestations and affirmations. And I said, I want us to be able to create impact, but to have joy while we're doing it. That's very important to us. And so that's a big part of what we do at Transcend, and helping people to experience that same joy too. Right? Happiness is not sustainable. Happiness is fleeting. It's in the moment. But to have joy despite the challenge and the trauma, I mean, that's the secret, right? And we have been able to experience joy through the most life-changing, most traumatic experiences that you could even imagine. And what was interesting is, and Sky shared this before we started going live, people were coming to us and saying, how are you guys managing? Like, seriously, legit, like what gives, right? And not only are you coping, but you're doing so well, you're thriving. So for me, that prompted a moment of introspection to really question, how am I really managing?
How do I do it?
Take a step back.
How am I doing this?
And explore that question in a way that gives me that insight and that awareness. And what I found is, I mean, our journey to mindfulness is a little different, but I was, before all of what we talked about with daddy and mommy, and especially having it happen in such a short time, I was really, in my personal life, in a very dark place. I was in a very unhealthy relationship. I felt like my face was down in the dirt, covered up with no light and no opportunity to resurface. And Sky has always been my counsel, my confidant, my personal coach. I was getting free coaching for years. Right? Thank God for her background. But what was happening was, she was exposing me to mindfulness without knowing that it was mindfulness.
Right.
And it was those conversations, those strategies that really helped me to pull myself out of that. And that is a part of how you build resilience. You build resilience through patterns of coping mechanisms, through interactions with people, and learning what those coping mechanisms were, right? And I mean, we had a good childhood, and I think I have developed my resilience late in life, right? Because people tend to think that you're born with it, right? That you're born with that tenacity and that grit and that ability to bend. I had a really good childhood, you know what I mean? Despite what we talked about with the teasing of the name before, life was good for me, right? So now when I come here and I struggle with identity and missing Jamaica and what that meant for me and trying to find my own and finding myself as a single mom and all these different things, that is what helped to sort of build that tenacity to bend and not break. And so that's what we relied on in those moments where, you know, it seemed like we couldn't find a way. We found a way.
And here's the thing that is encouraging for me is the fact that we may not be born resilient, but each of us has the capacity to be resilience, right? So that to me, I just want to touch everybody's capacity and feel it to be pouring over. That's because I've been able to find that fuel, and the beauty of it is it can come from within. Our vessel, we are equipped with these tools, these armors, these resources, our internal resources. How powerful are we that we can do that, right? The mind is a powerful thing, and studying the mind, studying the science of the brain, the physiology, the psychosomatic, I mean, it's just so fascinating. And to be able to take that information and package it in a way that people can digest and apply and use it in their life. I mean, there's just something so rewarding and nourishing for us to be able to do that work. And it really is a gift.
But I like the fact that you also touched on relationships, and you described it better than I think anyone I've ever heard describe it.
I'm happy that metaphor did it for you.
The dark place that come over your head.
Suffocating.
Because so many people go through that rough period, and you really feel like you don't want to get out of bed. That's never been me, but I know people do that. And especially for heartbreak, because I always tell myself no one's worth more than me, so I'm not going
it's real at the same time.
But a lot of people feel that, where you can't get out of bed, you don't want to go to work, you don't want to take anyone's call, no matter what the struggle is, right? So, but I like the fact that you both mentioned as well, the fact that it's inside you. Once you've gotten to that place of acceptance, right? It's inside you where it just kicks in. Because you could be okay today, but tomorrow you're not okay. And you're going to need that inner strength to make you survive and know that you're not alone. So it's so important for you ladies to share all this with us, because you've gone through your own struggles as well personally, with both your parents going through their different journeys. And I mean, what more challenging situations can one person have?
And a lot of people, I think, can identify, as you said, with that feeling of being stuck. Knowing that you need change, not quite sure how to change, and not even sure what the first step is. For me, as Sky said, I think I inherited this self-awareness from Daddy. And so during those times, I really went on a journey of self-exploration and trying to figure out and learn more about myself. And it was through those moments that I realized, you know, you deserve more, that you're worthy of more, you need to be vulnerable, you need to ask for help. I mean, Mommy raised us to be independent, not to ask nobody for nothing. Do it on your own, figure it out, right? And so for me, being vulnerable was very difficult, even with people I was closest to, like my sister, who I knew was able to help, but couldn't quite ask for the help. Those are the things that have made a difference for me. and I really feel like I'm not quite there yet, but I'm enjoying my life. I can honestly say that, and I feel like I am blossoming. But it was a choice. It was really a choice for me. I could have chosen to stay there.
Yeah.
Or I could have chosen to take my life at the helm and choose a very different life. And that is why I think both of us are so passionate about really living our best life. It's more than a hashtag for us. I mean, it's a hashtag. But it's really a core value for us.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't mean that we're perfect. We're far from it. It doesn't mean that we don't have those really rough days. But we remind ourselves that it's a part of life. We're human. And we just keep it moving, right? When we need the help and the support, we reach out and we get it. You know, I surrounded myself with groups of people. I would meet with a women's group in my church every week for 2 years. I needed that because the tendency we talked about is to isolate, right? Or to get really busy.
Yeah.
Neither of which are healthy. They're two extremes. But that was a part of my self-awareness. You know, getting to know me and what I needed to support myself to get out of it. And a big part of that is being vulnerable.
Okay. So Joan is also asking, where is Transcend based? So where can they find this information to connect with you ladies?
Sure.
We as global citizens,
Yes.
we are globally based, but we do have a website, transcendglobal.org. You can also follow us on Instagram at Transcend LLC, and Rain is at Mindful Parenting.
Mindful parenting.
One.
Attention to detail. I love it. You must be a manager. Attention to detail is on point. Yes.
And Joan Serge says, great show. And
you.
Denise Chung, thanks for tuning in. Philip Coke says, up, rain and sky. So thanks for tuning in. Wow, we have definitely, it's almost 9 o'clock if you can imagine that.
Wow, I'm surprised. I know.
Time flies when you're having
I know. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So, what parting words do you have for our viewers tonight that have tuned in and will also be sharing this episode? What would you like them to take away from tonight?
That's a good question. You want to start, sis?
I think what we've touched on so far, which is, you know, recognizing that capacity within each of us to actually live our best lives. And we have that choice, right? So one of the things that we're working on right now is when we think about how do we scale this work, how do we make it accessible truly globally, and the obvious response to that is to go online. So we're in the process now of developing a couple online programs, one of which will focus really on mindfulness, what it means to cultivate a mindfulness practice, what's the science behind it, how do you actually cultivate the practice of it, and then how it applies in different realms of your life as a parent, at work, etc. So that's one program that we're going to be launching. The second program is something that Rain touched on, that feeling of being stuck and not knowing what to do, where to turn, what to try, what first step to take. And for many people, you know, they don't even know what living their best life means. What does that even look like?
Yeah.
Right? I ask people all the time, if you had no barriers at all whatsoever and you could create your best life, what would that be? And they stop and
Most people don't know.
Dumbfounded. Wow.
They have to pause and think
Yeah.
about it. And these are questions that we ask ourselves all the time, right? Leaving my corporate job of 9 years, going out on my own, people think, oh wow, you're doing the damn thing, you're living your best life. There's another layer for me, there's another level for me, and I will continue to level up, because what my best life is today might not be the version that I want for tomorrow. And I'm constantly working towards whatever that is, while also savoring what this moment represents as well. And so that's another program that we'll be launching, how to help people who just have this feeling that there's more, and they might not be sure what that is, but this is work that I do with individuals in an organizational setting, and I just feel, why depend on an organization or an institution to be able to provide that luxury to people? What about the person that doesn't have that opportunity? And we want to be able to make it accessible more globally. As well as people who, it's July, August, and you realize, so what happened to those New Year's Eve resolutions that I had set all the way back in January and haven't quite achieved? Looking at what it means to truly personally transform and do it in a way that's sustainable, that you don't revert to your habitual patterns, and look at that from a brain science perspective. It was a conversation I had just today with a group of leaders. How do you actually reprogram your brain so that you can start to cultivate more effective leadership practices? So that would be my parting thought. Personally, I want everyone to walk away with the belief that they have it within them to be their best selves, to live their best lives, and that we have resources to help them do that.
Yes, I second that. Well said.
As much as I think I'm living my best life, hearing you say it, I'm going to have to ask myself that question every day, because like you said, every day it changes. What I am today is not what I will be in a month from now. So I'm glad to hear you guys ask yourself that all the time.
Absolutely.
I learned that tonight. I'm going to ask myself that question.
And visualize it.
Yeah.
Lie down in your bed and think about when you wake up in the morning living your best life, where are you?
Yeah.
Are you in Jamaica? Are you in Florida? Who is around you? What does your house look like? Are you living by the lake? I mean, all these things are important questions for you to ask.
Yeah.
And just the other day, Sky she's all over the place, all globetrotting.
Things I want.
Where in the world is
for
Aldo?
my life?
And she was saying, traveling. She's like, sis, I'm here in Florida. I'm going to Minnesota, and then I have to go to Boston, and I'm exhausted. And I reminded her of a conversation that we had 1 year prior, where she said to me, you know what? I watched a TED Talk about a lady who was a suitcase entrepreneur, and that's what I want to be. I don't want to be confined by geographical boundaries. I want to be able to work from anywhere with my laptop on the beach if that's what I choose. And I said, you're living that life. And she said, you know what, you're right.
You're right. Yeah.
And in that moment, she was present, she expressed gratitude, and it changed in a few seconds just how she was living that moment.
It's up,
It's all about the mind, and that's why we're doing this mindfulness work. It's really life-changing.
It's all up here. I truly believe that. When you said, finding that joy and living that joy through all of the struggles, I mean, I remember when I first saw this dancing in the rain phrase. And it spoke to me. It spoke to me. And ever since I saw that many years ago, I've been dancing in the rain. I've truly been dancing in the rain.
And Daddy always did that.
You have to.
Didn't really care about what people thought.
You really.
I'm learning that lately.
Yeah.
Dance on the tabletop and not
If
care.
you can get to a point where you're not a prisoner to other people's opinion, that is when you start living life.
But a lot of us, our history, the way we're raised or brought up, it's just different. Some people are more conservative. You have very real strict Caribbean parents. So it's really hard to just go dance on a tabletop, right? It just doesn't come naturally for people. But once you start to transcend and learn more about yourself,
and really develop that self-awareness. A friend of ours, Rochelle, hi, if you're watching, she is a practicing attorney, and she talks about happiness, and that's a big part of her.
She's a happiness coach.
She's a happiness coach, and she says it takes courage to be happy.
Yeah.
Right? It takes bravery. It takes living boldly. It takes making big, bold decisions to really find that joy. I like to reference it as joy because it's sustainable happiness, right? It's not easy. It requires work. But if you're willing to do the work, then you're really able to reap the benefits, and that's what we're committed to doing the work.
I think it really boils down to mindfulness. I think it really does. It does.
Yeah.
It really is how you think. It is how you process everything that's going on around you. It's how you think about it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Michelle Hussein from Atlanta says, awesome, very motivational show. Joan wants you guys to keep going on.
We will.
And Shara says, you ladies are so inspiring.
We love you,
Thank
Char.
you.
Mwah, that's our cousin.
In Jamaica.
Oh, and then Sandy Johnson says, awesome show, a real eye opener. So you're definitely making impact.
Great.
Important for us.
Yes, just your personalities, your smiles, great parenting.
Thank you.
Thank you to your wonderful
And
parents.
big up to Noah, who's
I
probably
was just
awesome
gonna
at
say
home.
him. No, she's waiting until I get home to go to bed, by the way.
Oh,
Yes, she said she's
bundle of joy. I think the whole Caribbean community loves her.
She's a
When
very
she's
special
out.
little
Oh,
girl.
yes, she is.
She really is. And she's also developing a mindfulness practice.
We meditated
Wow.
together last night
Yeah.
in bed while she was
Very
going off to
good.
sleep. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Start
And
with
how
them
old is
young.
she now?
She's 6.
6.
If
6.
only someone had held me at 6
Right,
and said,
yeah.
come here, little girl, make I show you something. Oh
Right.
my gosh, how
Yeah.
invaluable would that have been?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
gift that we can give to her.
Breaking the
Exactly.
cycle. You
Yeah,
just
I
said
think
something
so.
important. I think it's so important as parents that we break the cycle.
Absolutely.
You take the best of what you learned from your parents and then
Yes.
add your own spin on it.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For
Wow.
sure. And she reminds
Powerful.
us, she's such a mirror for us. I mean, I have really bad road rage, right? So I have to
Remember
really take time to
that
be.
she's watching you.
No, absolutely. She watches everything. And in a moment of angst, she said, Mommy, just breathe.
Oh, wow.
Right? She reminded me of that. And so that gives me confidence in knowing that she's listening, even
Yes.
though she pretends not to sometimes, and that I'm doing what I need to prepare her. To
It's a
prepare
bad
her.
road rage.
Yes,
Yeah, but I'm working on it,
You're
and
working
I've
on
gotten
it.
better. I've
Okay.
gotten better. Daddy came and spent a couple of weeks with us years ago, and he was driving with me. And when he got back to New York, he sent me some meditation tapes. He's like, I think these will be helpful. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of our viewers have road rage, so I want them to
A lot of people.
Yeah.
A
No,
lot
and
of people
listen, the
have it.
breathing, there's a tremendous amount of science and work about how your brain changes with meditation. I mean, it's tremendous, and it's amazing. So
It's been
yeah, no,
working.
breathing is huge. Absolutely, it's been. Somebody said to me the other day in Jamaica, Rain, you're so chill. This is somebody I've known all my life, and she said, you're a lot different. You're a lot, you're a lot more passive.
Good.
You listen a lot, and you just sort of nod. She's like Uncle Carrott, right? It was
Wow.
Charles.
What a
She's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're just so, she says there's a
Excellent.
difference,
Wow.
yeah, so it's
Well,
a beautiful thing.
awesome.
Thank
Proud to
you.
have you both on the show.
Thank
It's
you so much for
amazing,
having
and I
us.
think you gave us powerful information for ourselves and the next couple generations. So we'll share the link, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Caribbean Edge. It's been a joy having you on.
Ciao for now and take care, everyone.
Bye.
Yay!